Hey, it's Heather, and today is a very good day for an adventure in gardening. So today I thought I'd take you along on my adventure with canning. I'm going to be making some pickles, my famous pickles, which I'll be sharing the recipe with you. You'd think after the complaining I did in my last video about my cucumber plants not doing as well as I'd like them to, and losing some of the cucumber plants, that I'd have no cucumbers to pickle this year. But you know, gardeners don't like to lose any plants, not even one plant. The cucumbers are still coming in, and what I do is, like today I have 3 in my basket that I just showed you that I harvested, and I just keep them in my crisper until I have enough to do a small batch of pickles. Of course, I eat a lot of cucumbers fresh, and that's my preferred way of eating them, but no cucumber left behind, so we're going to be making some pickles. And I have 2 secret ingredients to my pickles that I'm going to be telling you about later on. So right now what I'm doing is I'm scrubbing up all of my cucumbers, getting all those little bumps off of them, any dirt, any debris, and then I'm going to soak them in some ice water in the refrigerator for a few hours, because I have a few other things that I actually need to do before I can start canning. So I seriously couldn't ask for a better day to do this project. It's overcast, it'll give me a break from watering, and we had some rain last night, so it'll give me a break from watering, and it'll give my plants a little break from the heat and the sun that's been going on. And also because I can outside. I try not to heat the house up with the big canning pot, so I'll stay tuned so I can show you my little setup. Actually not a big deal, anybody can do it, but we've been doing it for years. I'll be doing all the prep work inside the house. So one of the ingredients that I need for my pickles, and secret ingredients, one of the ingredients I need is horseradish. So I've got this horseradish plant here. That is huge, and you're really not supposed to harvest your horseradish this time of year. You're supposed to wait until fall, but I just need a little tiny piece that I can put in my pickles, and I refuse to go to the grocery store for it when I have it right here in the garden. Now, when I was a very young gardener and learning how to can and coming up with my recipes, I actually went to a garden center and tried to buy a horseradish plant, and the woman, the salesperson, actually older and wiser, she tried to talk me out of buying horseradish because it can be a little bit of a thug in the garden. And and maybe that's true if I weren't digging it up and using it, but I use it all the time. So that would be a lot like saying, you know, tomatoes are a thug in the garden and don't plant those because they'll self-sow the next year. We're going to eat them, right? Plus we know how to weed. And it's not that bad, but I love having fresh horseradish. Horseradish. Sound like anyway, I can't say that word very well. Horseradish. But I'm going to go ahead and dig a piece, just a little piece. I'm going to sneak it. Okay, so it's overcast, but it's muggy. Oh my goodness. All right, I have a little tiny piece of horseradish for my project that I'm working on today that I dug. I couldn't find the tip of it. I split it, and I had to dig around in the soil with my hand, but I got this piece, and this is actually really more than I need for the amount of pickles I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be doing a small batch. But while I was in there, I got this little offshoot baby plant horseradish. This is for my sister, so I'm going to go put this in some fresh soil in a pot and give it and I'll give it to her this weekend. Okay, so it's almost noontime and I still haven't started my canning project because, oh, that's just how I do things. I find one more thing to do instead of the thing that I'm supposed to do. But it takes me a while. This is the first time I'm canning this season, and it takes me a little while to get all the things together out of storage. And once they're out for the season, and I don't have to, it won't take as long. The next time I go to do my prep, you know, to set everything up, to get the canner and the rack and the jars, and now the jars are in the dishwasher, and the cucumbers are soaking, and I dug the horseradish, and I got the vinegar and the canning salt and all the things. Except, oh, I need to pick fresh dill and dill seed still. Okay, so I'll do that when I get back because I don't have any propane. So I've got to go to my local feed store and pick up some propane. I'm going to fill 2 tanks right now just in case, because hurricane season is coming, and fill your propane tanks. But the problem with that is my local feed store, Agway, they sell plants there, and I get distracted very easily, and they play music, and all of a sudden I'm like having a great time walking among the plants and just looking at all of them. So I'm going to try to put my blinders on and not look at the plants and just say, 2 propane please. We'll try it. But what if there's a sale on the plants? Oh gosh, they really are having a sale. The sign says, buy 2, get 1 free. That's like a plant for me and a plant for 2 friends. Or maybe that's 3 plants for me. I don't know. I won't look though. There's a they have perennial hibiscus. Pink ones. I don't have that. Let's go look. I got time. So I made it back. No plants. I didn't buy any plants. I thought about it. I looked at them. I drooled over them. I spent a little more time than I wanted to looking at them, and that was fun. So it was a fun outing. And now I'm back in the kitchen doing the prep work for the pickles. I peeled the garlic, and how much garlic? Well, that depends on how many jars I'm actually going to do for pickles. And I really just need to write it down. Okay, this many pickles equals this many jars, and I've just never done that. So I always plan on 12 when I'm doing my prep work. So I peeled the garlic. That's what I've done so far. It's probably going to be the longest amount of time for the whole process. And I got all the ingredients out. I got the canning salt out, and I use canning salt because I've always used canning salt because my grandmother used canning salt. And canning salt is doesn't have any anti-caking agents in it, so whatever you're pickling stays mostly clear, but you really can use other salts. This is just what I use. The problem with no anti-caking things, and actually all the salts I keep on hand don't have the anti-caking anyway, but you know, I have a lot of canning salt and it ends up kind of caking together, so I have to like ice pick it to get it to come apart. So I've just made a simple brine. You can use whatever kind of brine you've always used for pickles. That's fine. Mine is a 50-50 water to vinegar, so it's 6 cups of water, 6 cups of vinegar, and a half a cup of the canning salt. And I have it in a pot on the stove right now. Garlic's peeled, got my ingredients out. I have pickling spice, some red pepper flakes. I have some freeze-dried dill that I used last year, and I really liked it, but I still put the fresh dill in. And now I am peeling my horseradish that I dug this morning. So I soaked it for a while. I kind of did this really weird thing where I split it here, and I've tried to wash it to scrub the dirt out of it, but I'll just be cutting that part off. and it's like a 1/4 inch slice of horseradish per jar. So the way that the recipe works is and I'll show you as we go through, I have out here a 1/4 teaspoon, a 1/2 teaspoon, and 1 teaspoon. That's for the different spices. So the horseradish is ready to go and everything is prepped, and we're going to run outside and get some fresh dill and some fresh dill seed and maybe a little bit of coriander. Now those things are already in the pickling spice that I have purchased, but I like to put a little bit of fresh in as well. So let's head on outside for a minute, and we'll check the pot when we're out there to see if it's boiling. So this is the setup that I use for canning. I actually have 2 setups. Well, I have 2 setups and 4 canning pots, because every time I go yard sailing, I see canning pots and I just can't pass them up because. And so my husband used to brew beer, and that's where I got these little burners from, and I just hook up my gas. And the thing about using this method, well, first of all, safety first, and so I've got it on my walkway here. Although I have, one time we were canning really late into the season and I had to use this in the sunroom with the windows and the doors open, and I put porcelain tiles underneath it. But I'm just saying safety first. I won't do it on the grass, but I'll do it on the rocks. And wind is a big consideration. I've tried to can in the wind before, and I end up making like a little like box around it at a distance, of course, to keep the wind from blowing the flames. Now I need to say that you have to have patience with this, because you don't want the flame to be too high, and you don't want ludicrous boil, because if you've done any canning in the past, ludicrous boil, which just means like crazy boiling, and you put your jars in and you hear that snap noise. That snap noise is very bad, and no canning person ever wants to hear it, because that means that the bottom of your jar has broken off clean. I've done it again and again and again. And this is a great time for my PSA: never ever can barefoot. Don't do it. All right, so we're almost to a boil. Let's see. Let's peek in, and I do not can with the lid on. That's just the way I do it. All right, so we are now at a boil, and I actually want to turn this down just a little bit, so I fuss with it at first. And you got to do it in like micro increments. So I just turn this just a little bit, and that little control thing there adjusts the flame on how high the flame is. So, all right, let's go ahead and get some dill and some other spices. So you remember the cold frame here, and it is a mess, but it's a purposeful mess. I'm not going to tell you what we're going to do, because we're going to clean it out really soon, and we'll go over all the stuff that I'm going to pull. But this right in front of us here is the dill, okay? Now I will be picking one of these and putting it in my basket and bringing it in, but I really like to use when they're like this. Okay, so they're not the dried seed yet. All right, so we'll pick those, and then I have some coriander. Actually, a lot of coriander. See this? This is from the cilantro seed. And a lot of them have fallen already, which is exactly what I wanted to do. So I'll be picking some of that and bringing it in too. So my second crop of dill, I kind of planted it and then forgot about it, so it didn't make it. So this is crop number 3, so it's really small. See how small it is? But I'm going to go ahead and just steal a few pieces. There's a few plants in here. Okay, so we are ready to start canning. So my father-in-law Larry is going to be joining us, and come on over here. Is this your first time canning?
Yes. My first time on film, too.
Okay, well, it's just me and 143 of my friends. All right, so here's what I've done so far. So the jars, I keep the jars in a dishwasher that I ran the same day, keeping them warm and sterilized until the last minute. This way of canning is called cold pack, where we're going to, there's a hot pack and a cold pack way of canning. So we're doing cold pack today, but I keep the jars in the dishwasher until the very last minute. So before we put the cucumbers in, I'm gonna have Pa start to cut the cucumbers up for me, and all that he's going to do is he's going to cut the blossom end off. So this was where the stem, I don't know if you can see where the stem was, and the other end is the blossom end. So we cut the blossom end off, and I like my pickles to be in quarters. I have a better knife too. We'll use this knife. So I just put them in quarters like that, as straight as we can, because my cucumbers are organic, so they're not all perfectly straight. So, okay, but before we put the cucumbers in the jars, I'm going to put the spices in. So I'm going to have Pa start to do hang on one sec, we'll move these down. I will move this. These are our cucumbers that have been soaking since this morning in ice water. And that's just something that I read that it keeps your cucumbers nice and firm, because not all my cucumbers were picked on the same day. They've been picked over this last week that I've been picking these cucumbers. So some of them were a little soft, but right now they're all like really super firm. So Pa, I'm going to have you start to just do that. So you're going to cut the blossom end off on them, and you're going to quarter them. And then I'll give you a bowl. Here, we'll use this. So right now the brine is simmering. The lids and the rings are also simmering in boiling water. So we're going to keep everything. Our hands are washed. That is your blossom end. Yep. When in doubt, look at the other end of it, and you'll see that was where your stem was. So we're going to be working with 7 jars at a time. So I've got my 7 jars here, and I'm going to put a clove of garlic, actually, excuse me, 2 cloves of garlic in every single jar here, because I like my pickles very garlicky. So 2 cloves of garlic in every jar. And now I'm going to cut that approximately 1/4 inch of horseradish that we dug. Give it a little bit of a kick. So see how tiny little, smells like horseradish. Okay, and now I'm going to put into each, so I'm loading all the jars with the spices. So we need a teaspoon, and this is just pickling spice. And I always put a heaping teaspoon in. So I just realized there's only 6 jars here. And now we put 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes into each one. And then a 1/2 teaspoon of dill weed. This is that freeze-dried dill weed. You can use any kind of dill weed. You don't have to use the freeze-dried. So now it's those little extra things that I picked out of the garden. That's probably as much as we're going to need right now anyway. So I picked a little bit of fresh dill seed and dill. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that in, and then we'll start to load in the cucumbers. So now packing the cucumbers in. So this is how we do it. So these are all quartered. And so I just start laying them down in the jar, and I want to pack them in here very tight. And I mean, I'm really packing them in there. And then what we're going to do, see, with garden-grown organic cucumbers, they're not all the same size, and so we will cut smaller pieces for the top after. So I've packed them all in. So I will let you do one now. So by this point, you're probably wondering, okay, Heather, what are your secret ingredients? Because all the ingredients that you've talked about are pretty standard ingredients for making pickles. And yes, but the secret ingredient secret ingredients are love and prayer. Because you see, the pickles that I make are for people I love. And I take canning very, very seriously. It's because you don't want to mess up. You want it to be you want your food, anything that you can, to be done as safely and as sterile as possible. You really do. You don't want to, and trust me, I remember like one of the first times that somebody opened a jar of something that I made, I'm thinking, did I do it all right? Did I do it so that it's safe? And so you want to follow the instructions of whatever you're canning. You want to read up on canning, and you want to be praying, Lord, help me to do this the right way. Help me to keep everything sanitary and do the right timing and not see a squirrel, and then all of a sudden I'm sidetracked. But yeah, so love and prayer, that's the secret ingredient for canning anything. But today we're doing the pickles. So these look really good. So I will go ahead and pack these. So I didn't even plan on doing pickles this year because I thought I still had pickles in the basement.
Oh.
And I went downstairs and I'm like, oh my gosh, so when we had our family here in June, I guess we went through more pickles than I thought.
It's one of those things you add to your meals that you didn't know you missed until you missed them.
That's right. So we are getting down to maybe one more jar, so that will actually give us 6. And these cucumbers smell so good. So if this is all we're doing today, I'm really going to go ahead and I'm going to make these extra special, and we're going to use a little bit more garlic and the rest of the fresh dill because I don't want to let it go to waste. And who doesn't like pickled garlic? And yeah, cut them in quarters. So we're going to make little pieces of cucumbers to fill in the tops of the jars where the cucumbers weren't long enough. So yeah, and I'm just going to push them down into the gaps. This helps us to use less brine if our jars are fuller. And if I don't use all of the brine today, I can actually save the brine in the refrigerator for the next batch of pickles. Making pickles is not an all-day event like I have made it into. It was kind of circumstantial because I had to go get the propane and dig the horseradish. That one's good.
Oh, you need one more?
Yeah, let's cut one more for this one here. Actually, you know what? I think we've got room in here for another slice, so if you want to slice that one. So if you're new to canning, I highly suggest getting a canning book to get you off on the right foot, because canners will modify things over time naturally. So I try to refresh myself every once in a while and bring it back to how it's supposed to be so you don't take shortcuts.
Good.
Yep, we're good. Yep. We'll just have that last cucumber for dinner. So headspace is a big deal when you're canning, and that's something that you will read about in basic canning books. You want to make sure that you keep the proper headspace. in your jars. And I pretty much am going to do this by sight, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore, but you will see as I go. You do not want your food, the food that is in your jars, all the way up to the top. You don't want that. You want to keep them, you know, down lower. Usually where the rim, the first rim is right here. And same thing goes with your brine. You don't want your brine all the way to the top. Your recipes will tell you like a 1/2 inch gap or a 1/4 inch gap. So I am going to bring the brine over.
And just, I bought the kit. Paul has a kit.
Okay.
That if you are nervous by doing this the first time, they have a little tool and it shows you what the headspace is.
Oh, good. So I have a ladle and I have these jar fillers. And it's hot. So I got kicked out of the kitchen for canning a few years back. That's why I do the actual canning process outside, because apparently I make a big mess. Something about the floor staying wet all summer and fall, I don't know. Because I make a mess. All right, woohoo, we did that. So now, all this time that we've been talking, I have been simmering, whew, just got vinegar down my throat. I've been simmering the lids and the rings. So the lids and the rings are in this boiling water. And this is magnetic. Oh, I almost forgot. All right, so this is a really important step. You want to make sure that that there's nothing, no debris or anything on the rims of your jars. So I'm going to just grab some white vinegar. So I'm going to dip a clean paper towel and I'm going to wipe the rims down. Now before I put these into the dishwasher, I did inspect all the jars to make sure that they didn't have any cracks in them and there were no cracks on the rims, because that kind of stuff happens, especially when you use canning jars as much as we do. So you can see that there was some stuff, some dillweed on the rim. Okay, so now we're ready. So I'm going to use this little magnetic tool here to put my lids on. These are your one-time lids, one-time use lids. You don't get to use them a second time, although there's plenty of other things that you can do with them. But no more canning. You can use them to air seal food.
I think that kit that I bought has that magnetic thing in it.
Yes, yeah, these are great. Okay, so now we put this ring you can reuse over and over again. There comes a point though that you do have to trash them because they start to get rusty. And now the thing, I used to teach canning classes a couple of towns over, and I would do pickles and stewed tomatoes, and I would do a pressure canning class as well. And this is the thing, the hardest part that people had a hard time with, and it's how tight do we put the rings on, okay? Well, you're going to tighten it, and then you're going to back up a little bit. And then I would always check them after people did them to see. It's something that you learn over time. So you want it to be tight, but not Hercules tight. So you get to the tight part and you just back off. It's really good to can for the first few times with somebody else who's been doing it for a few years. I actually didn't have the opportunity to can with my grandmother. I was outside playing when she was canning, but I ate a lot of her canned pickles for sure. But I learned how to can from books. So now we're going to go outside. And a few years back, I was at a yard sale and I found these were old freezer shelves. And I was so excited because I'm like, oh my gosh, now I can like transport my canned goods, and I thought that was the greatest thing ever. So we're gonna go outside now. Okay. All right, so we are at a nice kind of gentle rolling boil out here. And I'm just going to set my, oh, remember when I told you don't do this with bare feet? Oh yeah, look who's got bare feet. I'm gonna go put shoes on. This isn't really the part though. That's the problem. It's when you take the jars out that you could break a jar and it could, all the boiling stuff could go on your feet. It's nice when you can with somebody else because it kind of flows better and you're not wasting time. Like we're gonna do a lot of peaches soon from an orchard that's nearby, and we'll have a few family members doing it at the same time, and that makes it so that, I mean, this pot's been sitting out here for a while simmering. So in we go. You want to make sure that they are under the water. And now I'm going to set a timer, and I don't put the lid on all the way. And now we just wait. All right, so our time is up. And now we're going to take our jars out. Now, if I were doing a lot of canning, I would have a table out here with towels on it. But we're just doing this one thing, so I have a little basket with some towels. And so this is something that I bought for my canning kit, that you want to pull your jars out very slowly, but this tool grips your jars really good. All right. Now I'm just going to put them in the basket on the towel. You're supposed to leave your jars undisturbed for 24 hours. Look at those beauties. Oh my goodness. Okay, and that is it. And now it is very hot and steamy, and I'm glad that we did this outside. So thanks for watching, and I hope that you learned something and that you enjoyed what you saw. And if you did, if you can give me a thumbs up and subscribe so we can stay in touch and you don't miss out on another adventure in gardening. See you soon.